Hello, brothers and sisters. So I have promised you a video for some time now, since Mother's Day actually, about my theory on how the Big Bang Theory and the God Theory are both correct. So today is a perfect nice day outside. We're not going to get very many of them, and I'm getting ready for my store and collecting all my rocks and my stones and stuff. And it just got me thinking to the time that I had come to the conclusion that I believe that the Big Bang Theory and that the God theory are both one and the same. However, we have always looked at them from two different perspectives in the past. So I had gone to Minnehaha Falls and had a vision of how things were being played out into the world. And I was really paying attention to all of the flows of the energy and the water. I was paying attention to all of the bugs and the animals and everything that was around. I was just really meditating on and paying attention on and asking Mother Nature to just give me some clues as to things that I need to learn. And one of the things that I saw was in one of these little rocks here, there were just tons and tons of little bugs. There were species living in every nook, every cranny of this thing. Not this particular one. I had actually chose one where it didn't have any bugs. But I was watching all of this happen, and I'm thinking, gosh, there is so much home for all of these little insects. You can see all these nooks and crannies and everything here. And see that definitely tiny little bugs can fit in there. Then I kind of got to thinking how much we were hurting them by just walking on them, because I would just touch a piece and the whole thing would crumble and there would go their life. And so from that point I thought, well, God, I really am doing something, doing harm to all these insects, and I shouldn't be doing this. That's something that God only should do, is be able to destroy these insects. And I felt really bad about it. But then I started seeing them rebuilding things. I started seeing them instantly rebuilding their homes. And as I was watching this happen, Mother Nature says, I've provided homes for everyone. And God's given me the ability to do that with the great creator. I have source, I have energy, so that I'm able to do this. And so, that got me to thinking about the Bible and how the Bible says that God states that he made man in his image, and that it says over and over and over, while God's speaking, he said, man can do as we can do. And that just seems like so much power to have over the world. And Mother Nature sat and said, Melissa, you don't have power over this world. That is God's thing. God has power over that world. But you yourself can be a creator of your own reality, of your own world that is within inside this physical world. And so I got to thinking, well, yeah, sure, I can put little bugs on here, and sure, I can encapsulate them so that they have this great home. And she said, no, make your own. Go ahead and make your own reality, make your own world, make your own species. And so I went through the process of how was this world made. And through meditation, this is what I had come up with, is that in the beginning, this is Earth. So obviously this is a geode. But think of this as the bigger picture. Think of this as actual Earth going through its formation in space. So what happened is that we had first started out with this little rock that was just kind of traveling in space. Now, as it went through space, things would come and hit it, and so it would compact it down. It would get little pieces of the meteorites or space dust, any of the stars, I mean, anything that, any of the planets, anything that really floated on, around in the universe or in the cosmos, they're just colliding, they're just hitting each other. So what's happening there is that actually in the middle of all of these meteorites is gases being produced. And we know that meteorites produce crystals because they fall into this earth. We've had moldavite, we've had paulistites. The only crystal that the only meteorite that we have found to this day that didn't contain any kind of crystals is actually the Chumpai, and that looks like more little blobs, like things have just been melted, and that's the only thing that we have not actually found some kind of ironstone in. So we know that meteorites contain crystals. And as it was going on, I was just watching as this little geode was going and clashing into things, picking up its chemicals, picking up its different properties, and also everything is kind of being compact. But because of all of the chemicals that were going on, it kind of came to the center. And so what happened was that all of the chemicals, all the gas compounds were just kind of sitting in the center, and crystals were kind of growing around it. So one day, something comes along and hits Earth while it's still compacted, while it's still in this form. And it hits it, and now we've reached the brim. So what happens is Earth kind of starts to split, and it goes apart. And now we have this great crystal base here. We have the great crystal base here. And what ends up happening is now they just kind of float around and they're kind of in space until some kind of source, some kind of power claims it and sticks it within the center of its energy. So what this means is not only do we have the Big Bang Theory where, all of a sudden everything just collides and everything expands and everything goes on, and now we now have this Earth, but it did the bang with being able to disassemble itself. So it wasn't that it was nothing and then it became something bigger. It was that it was something, there was a bang, and then it splits up, and now we have this great piece of Earth here, which then means any particle that is outside of that particle like this, there would be another property of Earth just floating around. There might be several. It depends on how this broke up. So anyways, now we have this piece of stone that's just kind of floating around in the air. And Source, God, says, I want to take that on. I want to make something of it. I know that I can make something of it. It's made of this great properties. We have a nice substance, stability to stand on, to hold a lot of things. And know that, the center of our Earth in itself, it does have, that open area for all of the lava and everything to go in. So this would be a great representation of what the actual, Earth would be. We would have this crust part right here, and then we have the mid part of our Earth, and then we have our open center that has all of the gases and all the energy kind of still going on. So we get this piece of Earth now, and Source says, I want to take care of that. And so Source starts putting energy in. And it is much like any energy work that any energy worker does. There's Reiki, Qigong, Ho'oponopono, Huna, there's Voodoo, there's everything. Lots of different energies, because realistically, all of the energy comes from the same place. We just all call it different names because we approach it from a different perspective. And so all energy workers are tapping from the same source. That source is the God source. And so anyways, we now have this Earth. So God says, well, I'm going to pick you up and I'm going to add some more properties. I'm going to add some different energies. So, God's doing his, or it's whatever you want to call God, her. So God now putting the energy upon the Earth and realistically meditating to start a reality. Now, if you know anything about consciousness, you know that in the beginning of consciousness, when we go back all the way back to like the very first spark of energy that we have, that our consciousness in itself is just a black wall. Now, we know that God's was just a black reality too in the beginning. And it wasn't until God said, let there be light, that there was actually light. And now, if you know any energy worker, you also know that that is the initiation that we start healing people, is we think of the light. We think of the light coming in our hands. We see darkness, and then we think of light. And that's the way that God does things too. So in saying that, God then started inflicting different energies through a meditative state, through a state of intent, through a state of manifestation. And then things started to kind of produce. Another example would be the Lego movie. If you've ever seen the Lego movie, the mastermind, or the master builder, they go into his mind and everything's just blank. Well, it's all just blank because you have the reality, the energy, the consciousness to start envisioning things, and they just kind of appear in the world of the consciousness. Okay, so God is manifesting all of these things to happen. He's manifesting the life. He's manifesting animals and people and light and all of these different properties to start our world. So when I was going through my meditation, God said, or Mother Nature said, you can do this yourself. You're not going to do it with this whole world, but you're definitely going to be able to do it yourself. So how would I best be able to explain to people how God would take over, or would start life, would start a reality? So I just kind of listened to the different properties. We know the 4 elements. We have earth, we have air, we have water, and we have fire, correct? Well, fire literally was a built things for destruction, and so it wasn't really utilized so much in the beginning because we were trying to go through creation. It wasn't until things got too large, things got out of hand, we had more people, that fire was really discovered. So fire is not something that is necessarily needed in the beginning of creation. So as I'm talking, through this and thinking, gosh, how can I go ahead and how can I create a reality? What would I need? My elements that I would need for sure would be air. My element, water, I need for sure because everything needs to hydrate. And then I would also need some element of earth. So what I did is I just took a simple piece of stone and a little bit of water from that, just actually from my tap water. Just kind of wanted to see what I could do. So I took a little bit of tap water, a little bit of stone, I put the top on, I gave it air. Now what you can see in this is that I kind of did, on a smaller scale, what God would have done is taken this piece of earth and said, I'm going to go ahead and expand on it. Now I just started with the simple properties just to see how it would go, and obviously now I'm going to show you that it is working, so I'm going to advance on, get a better container, and do some more kind of work on my little world. But what we know from Dr. Emoto is that we are able to, at any time, change the properties of water. And we're able to, at any time, adjust the molecules, adjust the genetic code depending on what we're thinking about. My family and I did the same kind of study. We did it with rice, and we could see the difference of sad, happy, rock music, love, thank you, and all of that. And so, as I was building this, I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to put all these healing properties into water, and Mother Nature's like, don't you think we thought about that, Melissa? Be a little bit more creative. So I started a kind of a fairy tale world, to be honest, is I just want a happy ever ending kind of fairy world. Not so much fairies, but my goal here is actually to just build an insect. And I know that it seems simple to just build an insect, but I will really want to build an insect that was not created in this world before. I want to implement my own energies, my own thoughts, my own thinking into this little living. And if I do that, if I do my own manifestation, I do my own manifestation of energies, theoretically, if I do have the power of God, then I should start seeing insects that I have created that actually won't live outside of this atmosphere. Now, because I am going ahead and I'm going to make a whole system, I'm going to add a lot more plants, and I'm going to add a little bit more sand. And I'm going to kind of give it a base. Actually, I might not add any plants. I'll just probably go ahead and add the base of the sand and some water, make it a little bit bigger so it can expand. But I have been paying attention to this, and what I do know is in caption that I'm formulating some kind of clouds. The clouds will come up, and then one day they'll all fall down at the same amount of time. So I do have some kind of ecosystem that is going on in here. Now, I did go ahead and I took off the top because now I am ready for an expansion in my little world. But what I did want to show you, and I hope that I can get it on video recording, is I literally did just start this out with a stone and with a little bit of water. And the way that I picked this stone was because I had seen so many grooves within it. And now I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing, and I'm hoping that you can also see it too, is that in this little reality that I have created, we now have some green, and it is moss. We have green moss growing here. I also have these little hairs. I don't know what you would call them, but I don't think you can see them. They look like they're just spider webby hairs that are kind of all over the place. And now, yes, this is something that is small. Yes, this is a tiny little step. And yes, anybody can probably take a stone with a bunch of little holes and put some water, and you can go ahead and create your own reality. But to me, this is a great example of how God would have started the trees. Is yes, excuse me, on here it's a little bit of moss for me, but for these tiny little insects that I'm going to be giving life to, these are the starting of their trees. And like I said, I have these little different hairy particles. It looks like there's just hair growing all over this that is just little white clear hairs that look like little spider webs. So I'm not sure what that is. I've never seen that in any kind of moss. But what I am seeing is a little bit more sparkle for my crystals. Now, those crystals were already there. I didn't build them myself. They were actually in there when I made them. But this is a great example of how we can actually all take our own little world, implement our own manifestation, our own reality, and we can start building. Now, a few days ago, there was this tiny little red bug that was in here. I don't see him now. It's possible that maybe he passed away during the rainstorm. I don't know. But like I said, this is also why I want to add a little bit of sand to it to make sure that it's not continuously drenching water, because I don't want that for my reality. And I'm sure that that's, you know, what God did was taking away and destroying and taking away and destroying and saying, oh, okay, well, it's time for you to come out of your jar, and I got to make you bigger. I got to make you you know, give you a little bit more. Not necessarily that we are in a jar, but this is just kind of my example. So anyways, this is how I feel that both kind of the Big Bang theory and the God theory really work. Because yes, we could have any kind of world explode, but we do have to have some kind of source, some kind of leadership that does take over that world, that does take over that reality, in order for it to function nicely. And we have to have a set of rules, you know, like we have our 12 universal rules that we have, that are rules that we can never change. We always have to adhere to them, because that was the set energy for this specific earth. And so if I were to set my intentions for this world and say, if this happens, then this happens, and that is forever and ever and ever and ever the law, then anything that is living within here actually won't be able to change that, because it's my energy that has been put into all of the different sources, into the earth, into the little trees, into the little bugs that are going to grow into the water. And so as long as I have my intent and my energy over rules on this, these little guys can try to manipulate energy. They can try to change things as much as they want, but the rules are actually going to remain the same. And most of my rules, because it is made out of this Earth's rules, are going to have to follow Mother Nature's rules. I'm not going to be able to manipulate them, because I am using a source from this Earth, and so I need to work with God in trying to create my own little reality. So I highly encourage you guys to go find you know, your own little stone, your own precious reality that you want, and really start meditating on that, start implementing the the energies that you want to go in there and see what happens. Because realistically, when God said that we can all be God, we all can be. We just have to maybe think on a smaller scale so that we know that this is the reality that could happen, versus thinking that we can take over the world, because that's never going to happen. This will always be God's place. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to my video, and I hope that this really helped a lot of you in your thinking of maybe how things started. Once again, this is just my opinion. This is something that I saw through meditation, and so I just want to enlighten and see what other people thought of it. Thank you so much, and I love you. Have a very blessed day.